All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. If you've been listening to the last few episodes, you probably noticed that I've had a lot of new guests on, a lot of people who were, making their first appearances on the podcast. Depending on, what month it is, sometimes I get a bunch of people who've been on the show 10, 7 or 8, 9, 10 times before over the years. And lately it's been all new people. And I think that the difference between the guest on this episode and the previous ones is the previous ones I at least knew who they were. I'd heard the names before. I'd heard maybe a few songs here and there, but I'd never actually met them or interviewed them before. But the guest on this episode is someone who is completely new to me. You reached out and sent me a link to your music. I have a lot of questions about it, and we'll get into that. But I think the best way to start this off is if you want to introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what you do as an artist.
Yep. My name is Florin Hawkwind. I record under the name Half Roman. Um, I would probably classify music as art punk. Like it's kind of started. Uh, I started using the name I think like early on in like high school, like just as like a recording project kind of a name. I
Okay.
haven't really released anything like up until then, you know. Um, But just recently, I started, recording and releasing and writing, like all that different kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, my second album came out like a couple of weeks ago, which I'm really proud of, you know. Um,
For sure, yeah, yeah, and I think that the art punk description definitely suits that album because I was listening to a Bandcamp recently, and it kind of goes between. There's this really sort of abrasive, noisy stuff, and then there's sort of more mellow, kind of almost folk vibes, but then it goes back to sort of this kind of cantankerous, loud, distorted, noisy stuff. So what is the inspiration for that? Like, what kind of bands are you listening to that maybe whether it was intentional or not, sort of inspired that kind of sound?
yeah, it's very eclectic, but I was very heavily inspired by artists like Gary Wilson, R. Stevie Moore, and as for like the noise stuff, I think what really got me into that was I listened to Sonic Youth in high school.
Sure, that'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought it was really cool, especially watching those like the old videos they used to do, like their performance of Silver Rocket, where they're just getting down, they're just like mashing the guitars like against the amp. Like I thought that was so cool, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And I was
Well,
like,
it's like the physical, making the sound physically rather than just twiddling some knobs. You actually have to be like full body into it, right?
yeah, that really that was really cool to me.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah, no, it's the whole like spontaneity of the album is I would say have to be inspired by all those three things, like just taking them and like mixing them all together, Like I kind of worked with different elements. Like I got a lot more creative. Like
Okay.
that was kind of my goal. Was the first EP I released was like kind of like a folk like singer songwriter kind of a thing. Just me and the guitar and the vocals.
Well, and there's some of
Uh,
that on the new one too.
yeah, yeah, no, definitely. The second track, Opossum Man, is kind of follows that same vibe. But I wanted to kind of branch out and do like a lot of new stuff too, like stuff that was like a more experimental.
Yeah.
I think one of my biggest inspirations, Anco, Animal Collective, like like I listened to them like a lot when I was in high school, and
Okay.
it got me into this mindset where I'd never heard anything like that before, so it kind of like it just completely changed like my whole perspective on making music and stuff like that, like what a song could be, what an album could be.
Yeah. Well, I guess the
Yeah,
best stuff. The best stuff does that, right? When you find something that sort of clicks with whatever your brain needs, and it works with it,
yeah,
it does. It completely switches your idea on like how music is even made, right?
yeah, it's really fun,
So,
honestly.
so obviously it's a solo project. How much of this are you playing everything on these? Like, is this 100% you?
Yeah, everything. I got the guitar right there, the bass right there. I just used this old audio interface here. I picked myself up like a Steinberg from the pawn shop,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and just this mic. That's pretty much it. There's a drum machine built into the DAW I use, to program a couple of drum beats, and some of
Cool.
them are just like straight up sampled too. So yeah, no, all the instruments are me. So
Do these songs mostly start out as like acoustic sort of singer songwriter things, then you add to them, or I mean, I imagine the more experimental stuff is probably a bit of a different songwriting structure, right?
what I usually try to do is I kind of worked it up from like the drum beat, like the foundation,
Okay.
because I very rarely in the past had worked with percussion. A lot of the times, like when I would write songs and stuff, it would just be strum, C and onto G and like
Yeah.
stuff like that. Maybe move the capo up the fretboard a little bit, for some variety.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this one was more like yeah, more based on percussion because that's something that I'd kind of struggled with in the past, like
Okay.
and that's the reason why it took a little bit longer, or it took a little long to come out because it was originally planned to come out for like the next summer, right? Or last
Okay.
summer, sorry.
Last previous summer. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Have you done any of this stuff live, like, or is that something that's going to be happening in the future? I mean, just I ask because it's a solo project and you're playing everything, so I'm curious how this would look if you did have it in a live setting.
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends that play. I did go to a technical or vocational school for like for music and stuff.
Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah, so this is definitely something I do want to do as a career, but and I think I'm gonna probably look towards yeah, getting musicians for like a supporting band because the whole point is I didn't want to add too many overdubs and too much crazy things. Like I kind of wanted to keep like still the core garage rock feel without
Yeah,
you know stepping too far out into like experimental where I can't do it on stage or anything. Because like the whole point of the album was like, oh yeah, I'd be able to get a couple of friends together and we'd be able to play on stage and do this and that. And
yeah.
yeah,
Well, it has kind of a raw, sort of very DIY vibe to it, which I mean, I see what you're saying. If you added way too much stuff on there, it would sort of take away from that garage rock thing for sure. Yeah, it's got that fuzziness and that kind of a lot of the songs sound like they were recorded live, whether they were overdubbed or not. It has that sort of immediacy to it. So, is that something that you did on purpose, or is that just sort of how it turned out, getting that sort of live sound?
it was definitely just how it turned out, like a little mix of both, right? Like it
Okay,
was it was definitely on purpose, but then because like this isn't a very like expensive mic, like do you know what I mean? Like I I pretty much like had to like kind of slather it in effects.
sure.
It picks up the sound like perfectly like if just for an acoustic, right? But I still wanted, to still have like some of that raw feel and everything. So yeah, just slap like some distortion on it and stuff. One of the biggest inspirations for me is Jad Fair or the
Yeah,
band Half Japanese.
totally. Yeah, yeah,
That what the way they kind of said like the only chord you really need is like to plug the guitar into the amp, like that kind of a thing. That's kind of the mentality that I try to throw. It's like, oh, like this sounds cool to me. Like, do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
This,
Well, I think people choose one or the other, right? When they're making music, either it's something that sounds cool to them, and they just want to make whatever weird art it is because it's what's in their head, and then there's people who are trying to do it commercially and trying to do it to appeal to everyone else. And I think there's a very different. Some people mix the two, but there's also a big divide, I think, between playing something that you expect other people to want to hear versus playing something because it's here and you want to just sort of dump it onto a recording, right?
yeah, yeah. I try to hit that balance. Like, like I definitely had that in mind while writing some of the songs.
Yeah,
Like, oh, like what's the commercial appeal and stuff like that. But at the same time, like I would also have to ask myself too, like, do I like this? Like, do I like what I'm writing? Do I like what I'm making? Like, So yeah,
What's
it's
the reception been to it so far? I mean, I know you've had it out for a few weeks now. Have you got any feedback from whether it's friends or strangers or whatever?
yeah, yeah. I've gotten very positive reception, honestly. Um, some people are like, oh, I don't really get it, or like it's a little hard to, listen to at times. Like I think that's the reason why I made the third one, MK Love Trail, like the main single off of it because it is a little removed from the rest of the album. It's
Sure.
like the least like noisy slash experimental. It's just, it's straight up just like a soul kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's more
Um,
palatable to a larger, wider audience than people who want to hear something really crazy, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I have both of those in mind.
Cool. Cool. Um, but one thing I like to ask people who are on the show a lot of the time is where they see themselves sort of fitting in with the music scene here in Manitoba. Because I mean, especially in Winnipeg, but throughout the whole province, there's a lot of a lot of sub scenes and sub scenes of sub scenes and all these, people throwing genres around left and right. And there's sort of I feel like most artists have kind of find a place where either they feel like they belong or want to belong, right? So do you have an idea of sort of where you fit in the larger ecosystem of Manitoba music?
I do have a couple of friends like in the scene. Like I've played open mics before when I released my first EP. You know, I played a
Cool.
couple songs off that a couple times live. And yeah, I have made a couple of friends that I usually I don't know what I would really consider them if I had to like label them or put them into like a scene or a sub scene, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
I've definitely like met people who are like more like-minded and people that aren't. So,
Yeah,
you know.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. I think maybe a better way to word that question then is I mean, do you feel like this is versatile enough that you could play, for example, you could play at a singer-songwriter show and then you could also play at like a punk show or a noise show or something even more experimental. Do you think that you have that much enough sort of diversity in the different songs that you can sort of, if you're playing live, you could tailor it to the setting and the audience?
Yeah, oh for sure. That's the reason why I wanted to branch out to, so many different kind of, you know, different routes that I take it just
Sure.
because like what I really like is just being on stage and playing. Like, you know what I mean? Like I really like recording and like messing around with all that stuff. But the true heart of it, like the true like a lot of the fun for me comes from the performance, Like
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, you said earlier that this was originally slated to come out sort of in the summer. It's out now. How old are these songs? Like, are these songs that you've had sort of lying around for a while that you're just now putting on a record, or were these all sort of specifically recorded for this album? Because a lot of people, especially in recent years, because there's been so much craziness with after the pandemic and everything, people have had sort of songs lying around. They just haven't had a home yet. Are these all deliberately for this one album, or are they songs that you've sort of had for a while?
it's kind of a mixture of both. There's a lot of outtakes, like I would say, like a lot of outtakes. Like sometimes I would like write like Burning Star, like the I think it's like the third last one, like almost
Okay.
didn't make it on, and there's a lot of other songs like that that I wanted to try to make like a cohesive like sounding product out of like the stuff I had like the just on like the burner versus
Sure.
like stuff I was just writing like at the moment. So I tried to like keep that in mind too. So that there's a lot of like outtakes and unreleased material from this album that'll probably seep its way because I do plan on like recording again after the
Okay.
holidays, after seeing my family and everything.
Yeah, yeah. So those songs will probably eventually show up somewhere.
Yeah,
Cool,
even if
cool.
it says like a compilation or something, like I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I guess we're in an era too where you can do that easily, right? You can just throw them up on Bandcamp and then suddenly you have a new release.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, what you just said a minute ago about the sort of cohesiveness, like as someone who's old and set in my ways, I prefer that with an album. I like to listen to something that has sort of an overarching vibe to it. It doesn't have to be a concept album, but has some kind of connection, song to song, and has a flow to it. And that, it's always nice to hear people trying to make something cohesive because in 2024 that doesn't necessarily happen anymore. A lot of people are just recording a collection of singles basically, right? And that's because of the way it's released, because of the way it's consumed. Do you prefer, like, what is it like for you to release music, I guess, in this place we're in right now where it's all about singles and you're trying to make something that's a little bit more of a collection of art that goes together?
I had that in mind too. I was thinking it is really depressing that like a
Yes.
lot of artists nowadays like the trend that I noticed is yeah they get out like their singles and they have like maybe two or three songs like latched onto it, but like that's what they're mostly focused on. It's just like the one song coming out like because that's like how the ecosystem is, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to get like all the plays on the one song, all the plays on the one song, and you get paid. But
You get paid 0.0023 cents or something. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and for me, like, yeah, I found like a lot of like the best albums or the albums that I like the most, like, do kind of have like an overarching like theme, like all the songs like going really well together, like,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, no, I kind of had that in mind, or like even like doing like the like ordering the track numbers and everything, and
Well,
Um,
that's almost like a lost art. Like sequencing an album is something a lot of people just don't do, right? Because again, like you're saying, it's just they focus so hard on the singles that when they put it out, it's just whatever order, it doesn't matter because they don't even assume anyone's going to listen to it as a single piece, right?
mhm.
So that's it's weird. It's weird. We're in a weird in between era, I think, where people are either doing like singles only and they don't care about someone listening to the whole project, or you have people who want to. That's the goal, right? Is to get listen to the whole thing, start to finish. And I prefer that as someone who I still listen to pretty much entirely physical media, and so I put a record on. I'm not going to go switch a song after it's over. I'm going to leave it on and listen to the whole side, right? So I think that it's yeah, it almost feels like a generational thing where the younger. I mean, I've kids who are teenagers, and that generation is definitely all about individual songs. Like the idea of an album doesn't even make sense to the way that they consume music, right? So it's yeah, it's weird. That wasn't really a question. That was just old man yells at clouds, I guess. So if someone's hearing about you for the first time on this show, what's the best way to find? What's the best way, first of all, to hear your music? Where would you direct someone to check out what you have out now?
Right now it's out just about everything. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, like all the music streaming services.
Okay,
I would ask people to go and check out my Bandcamp though, considering like sending I think it's about 4.99 Canadian. Plus you get like the high quality stuff, and I'm doing this thing where it's like if you do buy the album, like I will if you send me like your email, if you email, sorry, I got like my words mixed up. If you email me like your address, if you want, like I can send you like a note with like a cool drawing on it. I don't know, like a dinosaur or like an alien or something.
make it worthwhile,
Um,
right? Make it worthwhile to actually buy the thing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, because I really do like appreciate like anybody that like listens or even takes the time out of their day to get like come across my music, like stumble upon it and actually like enjoy it. So
definitely. And then, this being a podcast, someone could hear this the day it comes out, at which point, this is a fairly recent record. All of this stuff still applies. Someone could hear it a year from now, 2 years from now. What's the best way to find out what you're up to as far as, potential live shows at that point, or anything else?
I'm on Twitter under Half Roman Music, and I'm on Instagram under Half Roman Music. I usually post both to there, like if I'm going to be playing live or
Okay,
um, more frequently or most frequently, I would say like the Instagram would probably be like the way to go about that. Yeah.
cool.
Um, yeah, I don't use Instagram that often, but like it's usually the first platform like I choose when it comes to announcing stuff like that. So
Cool. And then what is the significance behind the artist name?
Half Roman.
Yeah.
Um, well, I really got into Greek mythology and stuff. 'Cause I was homeless for like a brief period of time, so
Okay.
I would just I would just read a lot. Like I would go to the library, go and like read like it, and I just thought it was like a cool kind of like allusion to half Japanese too, like half
Sure.
Roman. And I really got into like Stoic philosophy and stuff. Like I thought the idea of that was really cool. Like the song about Diogenes was just because like I thought he was that is probably like my favorite person in history. Like Diogenes, like all the crazy stories about him and everything. Like I knew
Cool.
at some point I was like I'm gonna write an anthem about this guy. Like while I was reading about him, it's like it's too crazy.
Is that stuff like the mythology and all of this? Is that present sort of in what you're doing with new material as well? Are you still sort of gaining influence from that stuff?
Yeah, no, definitely. It dictates like the direction. Like one of the reasons I got even like the courage to start posting all this stuff because I was thinking like, well, who's gonna listen to this? Is from Diogenes because he didn't care what people thought. He didn't care how like stupid he was being. He didn't care about any of that. He just like kind of did what he wanted. So I was thinking, all right, well, with this project, like I'm just gonna stop caring about what other people think about it. I'm just gonna take it in my own direction. Like, do I think it sounds cool? All right, I do. Okay, I'm uploading it. Like, fuck it. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good. I think it's a good way to approach it for sure.